There appears to be separate individual beings who have their own existence, separate from each other.
The mind derives its knowledge from observation of the actual. However, knowledge itself is not actual, nothing but a symbol of that which is beyond the symbol.
There has to be a separate existence of something else for there to be a separate experiencer, and there isn't. You can't find it anywhere. It's all one seamless flow.
All is reality, all is life.
Everything really is, in the truest sense, absolutely one with what you are.
It's a radical inclusivity, unconditional acceptance. It's not about even trying to cultivate loving compassion. The awareness that you are is loving.
It's all completely and utterly allowed. No matter what your mind is coming up with or telling you about it, it's all completely allowed in already.
There's no division. Those notions we have about ourselves and life, they disintegrate. Because the hard truth is that they are concepts only, they are constructs only.
We're just trying to kind of explore this absolute mystery, this situation we appear to be finding ourselves in, really. And it's kind of framed as non-duality. You know, we just appear to be in this absolutely miraculous mystery, and this is kind of a way of exploring it. And I just love doing it.
Nick Hyam here from nisargayoga.com. Welcome to another episode of the Nonduality podcast. Here with me again is Paul Dobson.
What is experience? What is this experiencing that is happening? I mean, we've got a word for it: experiencing, we've got presence, we've got awareness. But what even is that? We haven't got a comparison. There's not a non-experience, there's not a non-presence, there's not an absence to compare it with. So all there is presence, experience, shining. There appears to be a separate individual beings who have their own existence, somehow separate from each other. We've just put that idea onto this reality.
Yeah. Got a definition here from the dictionary, quite a good definition of the word experience. It says, the actual observation of facts or events considered as a source of knowledge. But there's no way of knowing that there are such external occurrences beyond conceptual knowledge. The mind derives its knowledge from observation of the actual, observation of the factual. However, knowledge itself is not actual. Knowledge itself is not factual. So reality is perceived through knowledge, not perceived through any unmediated means. There's always a mediation going on. It's nothing but a representation, nothing but a symbol of that which is beyond the symbol, that which the symbol tries to symbolize. Another definition here of experience is the fact of being consciously the subject of a state or condition or an object. We don't really consciously experience objectivity or subjectivity.
No.
There's an interaction with all of that, but it's a very seamless, effortless flow of whatever this is. There's no division. All is reality. Anything that can be known is nothing other than that. How could it be? How can it be divided when all is reality, all is life? But when we actually inquire into the building blocks of experience, we don't find anything concrete, we don't find anything divided. We just find the same energy, the same life, the same vitality, the same awareness. And it's so vivid when you really take time to pay attention to it.
Yeah. You know, I've played around with this actually in lucid dreams. I will be perceiving reality in the exact same way I'm perceiving it now, although I know I'm dreaming. I'm very aware that I'm dreaming. I'm walking around and I'll pick objects up and see how they feel. And it's fascinating because the objects feel exactly the same way they do now. If I was to pick up a cup now, it feels the exact same way as it does in a lucid dream. Yet I'm very aware in the dream that the object is in no way separate from me. It is actually a manifestation of, well, let's say, in dream terms, my own dreaming mind. It is absolutely none other than myself. I am creating it all in real time. Yet it feels very much like a separate object. And it's an interpretation and a story on top of that kind of makes it into this separate object, this separate world that I'm experiencing. And that's a strange thing to watch in a lucid dream. Half of you is absolutely, completely aware that this is none other than your dreaming mind. Everything really is in the truest sense absolutely one with what you are. You can't, there's no sort of argument about that, because everyone would probably agree with that. That is, a dreaming mind is just you going through your own reality. But then you wake up and you start to think, you start to abstract these objects and things and people into the world, when actually the experience hasn't changed. The experience is exactly the same.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can't say that there's actually any difference between the dreaming world and our current world in that respect. It all is all just pure experiencing, pure perceiving, and then ideas and stories that are then put on top of that.
Yeah, and spontaneously, there's no one doing that. We know the apparent world of our ideas, but we don't have access to the mind-independent reality. We only know the experiencing of stories, representations and symbols of reality. Beyond those stories, what can we know? But is there an objective reality anyway? And is it true that we don't have access to reality, when surely reality is all there is? All is reality. Even the stories borrow their reality from that. None of those stories have their own independent reality. Just as any of the objects you can see around you, none of those objects have their own independent reality. This body does not have its own independent reality. The sense of me, wherever that seems to be located, behind the eyes or in the chest or somewhere else, that sense of me does not have its own independent reality.
Maybe we've assumed a lot of things. We've assumed an outside world, yet nobody has ever experienced anything outside of their experience, and could never experience outside of their experience.
Our minds impose these conceptual limitations and constraints and divisions on the raw flow of experience.
There's only seeing, there's only hearing, there's only touching, and ultimately only awareness or experiencing. And there's no need for any separate experiencer to be apart from that, because there isn't actually. There has to be a separate existence of something else for there to be a separate experiencer, and there isn't. You can't find it anywhere. It's all one seamless flow that is arising. Just you basically, another way of putting it is, you are the present moment, because you can't separate yourself out from the present moment. So therefore, you are the whole of your experience right now.
Yeah. What does experience ever experience other than experience? What does consciousness ever become conscious of other than consciousness? So experience can't experience an object. It can only experience experience.
I actually only know my current this, whatever this is. To even go further than that, to call it more than that, to call it more than this, is to start extrapolating and abstracting on top of what's actual. What is actual? This, I can say for sure, this is actual. What it is, my ideas and stories about it aren't actual. But this is absolutely absolute. You see an image in a mirror and go, that's me. All you're seeing is light. And what is seeing can't be said. And we don't even know what seeing is. We don't know what the happening that we call seeing is, the perceiving. It's always after the direct experience. It's always after the fact. I can't say what this is. It's not self. It's not no self. It's something's happening. There's an experiencing. I can't say I don't exist. I don't exist as just Paul, though.
But I suppose what we can say for sure in direct experience right now, it's clear that there is no world beyond the world that is experienced. There is no entity experiencing that experience. There is only experience, and another word we can use there is awareness, is presence, is consciousness, and any of those, just life, just reality, any of those words.
Whichever works for you.
Yeah.
Reality loves exploring itself. It's kind of apparent that it does. It really loves exploring itself in every possible way.
As that Zen quote says, it's quoted a lot. It's a really good one. Before one studies Zen, mountains are mountains and waters are waters. After a first glimpse into the truth of Zen, mountains are no longer mountains and waters are no longer waters. After enlightenment, mountains are once again mountains and waters are once again waters. It's not about just somehow erasing the mountains and the waters or any kind of form. It's helpful to realize what you're not. And when I say you're not, I mean what can't define you. Yeah, so can the body define you? Can your name define you? Can your moods that come and go define you? Can your thoughts really, really 100% capture you? And it's seen that no, you go from the belief I am something, some particular thing, to the realization I am nothing, no particular thing. And then we go from the belief I am something to I am everything. When you really investigate into like the finer building blocks of experience, there are no mountains, there are no waters. There's just life. There's just this life. Well, I must be everything then, but I'm no particular thing. I'm not one independent object, nor is the mountain an independent object. I'm not a subject. Neither am I a composite of thoughts, sensations, emotions, feelings, habits, memories, desires, fears, likes, dislikes. There is just life. There is just that fullness of reality. All is that, and I am all.
Yeah, that netty process. Separating what doesn't define you. And I think that's very helpful. I think a lot of people get stuck there, though. Reality is nothing. There's nothing here. It's just like kind of this empty void 0.0 state or something, you know? And then there's the right-hand path where you sort of really bring reality in. Like, you bring it all in, that actually you dissolve into it and it dissolved into you. And actually, I think it's a combination of the two. To start with, you do want to sort of see what you're not, so to speak, but then you actually see that you also are all of that. But you can't really see that until you've until you've separated it out to a certain extent. But they're not separate paths, in my opinion, you know. This is where it comes round as full circle. The all-inclusive thing is the hatched chick is no better than the egg. The caterpillar is no worse off than the butterfly. It's just different forms. And getting lost in thoughts, getting lost in confusion, it's just a different form. It's kind of the caterpillar instead of the full, blissful reality that is the butterfly. Ironically and paradoxically, the second you see that, you're actually back in that blissful reality. The second you see anything, it's not a problem anymore. You're free of it.
For sure, yeah, that's it. So from the perception of duality, then through a process of elimination or exclusion, to the recognition of inclusion, realizing that as reality, well, no expression of yourself is absolute. All is embraced unconditionally. Even disunity is absolutely unconditionally held within that unspeakably inclusive reality that you are. Another way of saying it is you are surrendered.
Yeah. You can't possibly surrender any more than you already are. It's all completely and utterly allowed. No matter what your mind is coming up with or telling you about it, it's all completely allowed in already prior to that story that the mind's come up with. So it's automatically completely surrendered to.
Yeah, that word doesn't make sense any longer, does it? Because there was no need to ever surrender.
To even call it surrender is kind of arbitrary in a way. Surrender as an idea or a practice is kind of a strange thing. It sort of doesn't really work. Surrender really is seeing that fact really clearly, the fact that it's already happened. Seeing it fully, you realise there's nothing to surrender to, and that's really just, you're off the hook. You don't have to do anything, which is great because there's no effort that needs to be made.
There was no need to ever surrender. You are that space of flow, ease.
Yeah.
Not to deny, to bypass any suffering. It's all included. Your awareness is accommodating these words, holding these words. You're receptive, fully present to these words. These sounds are simply a modality of awareness. Just as seeing is, there's no expression in life that isn't what you seek, isn't reality, isn't God.
Exactly. Pain and suffering isn't pain and suffering. When it's happening, it seems very real, having gone through a lot of it myself. It's not what our ideas about it say it is. The awareness that perceives the arising of pain and suffering is the exact same awareness that perceives, the sound of a bird song outside. Ultimately, if you follow that energy back, it's ultimately the same source. It can't be anything else. Without any ideas or concepts about it, it just is what it is, arising as what you perceive as pain and suffering in that moment. So it's absolutely allowed to be there. It's absolutely allowed in the same way as everything else.
Yeah, and so when we say it's allowed in, we're not talking about a belief that it's allowed in, or a philosophy, or a certain type of spirituality that gives you the power to cultivate this acceptance. This is recognized through the direct seeing. So if I say to you 2 words, love, hate, was the latter word negated? Was it kind of wiped out before it came into actuality? Did it kind of fall off the edge into the abyss? So these 2 words are possible through your awareness. Your awareness held those sounds. It's the kind of love that we are quite unfamiliar with. If you were to really investigate what was there, we'd find the same life energy, the same consciousness vibrating in different ways, different densities, different appearances, different forms. It's a radical inclusivity. Those notions we have about ourselves and life, about right and wrong, they disintegrate because the hard truth is that they are concepts only, they are constructs only. But to know the beauty of the flower, we must also weigh that beauty up with something that is in the opposite sphere of experience, yin yang. We must have a play of dualities to actually experience one or the other. This is the reality we seem to live in, the reality of duality, of otherness, separateness. And there is our suffering, but also there is our bliss. Here we get to explore every possible experience, seeing how far we can go, seeing how much we can experience, how much we can create, how much we can get lost, only to find ourselves again. And that's really what we're talking about. And we always have this longing to come home, whether you're a spiritual seeker or any other kind of seeker. There's this underlying desire for fullness, for unconditional love, for inclusivity. And the recognition of that only comes through the play of the opposites. If this was blank, nothingness, there'd be no experienceable. Yet look at this miracle of this rich outpouring of reality, which is nothing but reality, even the parts of it that are unbearable. And that's the inclusivity. That's the unconditional acceptance. Even that, even this too.
My main thing at the moment I've been exploring is, as you know, Nick, is kind of just the fact that we just can't say what this is in any way whatsoever. Like, this is just a complete and utter mystery. I always had the idea that somebody had the answer, maybe one of the gurus knew something that I didn't know, or maybe one of the scientists knew something, or it turns out that nobody has a clue what's going on, which is quite interesting. It's actually a really great place to be, because something about that fact is extremely liberating. There's no way, any way the mind frames it is ever going to be correct. Any thought that comes up that tells you about what is going on here cannot possibly be it, because what is actually happening is completely raw and miraculous, and prior to, if you can say in a linear term, prior to that story that comes up, reality kind of reveals itself in a way beyond words to itself. It's kind of like now you're talking its language almost. And therefore pain and suffering, things like that, they still are what they are, but they also seem to be not that at all. They're also miraculous. Everyone and everything is already that. And what realization is to notice that to already be the case. In a way, there's nothing to do, but if it feels like there's something to do, then absolutely go for it.
The invitation is to look, to really be available, to be that space of awareness that can hold it all. Allowing the pain to be fully painful, allowing the fear to be fully fearful, and to look beneath the veil of thoughts, the veil of memory, imagination, just to be open to what is there. In a way, the bypass is my pain, my fear. That can be a bypass to actually what's really here. The awareness that you are is loving. It's not about even trying to cultivate loving compassion. It's about knowing yourself as being that already. You're already loving compassion. You're already inclusivity.
Totally.
If there is an ego, a limited, separate sense of self, it's the conflict with what is, and you are not that. You are that flow. You can't get in the way of it, of yourself.
Yeah.
That's why I love the word nisaga. It points to this kind of constant fluidity of life. And even the apparent interruptions and conflict within that are part and parcel of that inclusivity of fluidity that you are.
We are literally infinity floating in infinity as infinity. What is going on? And it's dizzying. And the mind immediately has to close it down to something it can manage. We're just trying to kind of explore this absolute mystery, this situation we appear to be finding ourselves in, really. And it's kind of framed as non-duality. We just appear to be in this absolutely miraculous mystery, and this is kind of a way of exploring it. And I just love doing it.